Welcome to the North Witch Podcast with your hosts Azariel Flame and Sandra Von Holland. In this podcast, we explore all the things that can help us to be better and improve our lives in body, mind, and spirit. Looking at everything from witchcraft, sorcery, woo-woo, spirituality, biohacking, the mundane, and everything in between. We occasionally have on guests from various backgrounds, practices, and philosophies. We welcome everyone from all walks of life, from the left-hand path to the right-hand path, from the medical to the holistic, from the woo-woo to the scientific, and everything in between. We have conversations and discussions about our experiences over the years, what works for us, what hasn't worked, and explore new theories and science, trying them out, seeing what works, and debunking what doesn't. Thank you for joining us on this wicked adventure along the crooked path as we adventure into the mysterious and wonderful world and welcome what truly works for us to become better witches, sorcerers, magicians, and our best selves so that we can live our best lives. May these conversations help you to ignite the light within. The views expressed by our guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of us here at Northwich Magic Co. All of the information shared on this podcast is anecdotal and shared for entertainment purposes only, and does not constitute medical or financial advice. Always consult a doctor, physician, or professional in their field before trying any of the things that may be discussed on this channel. Magic and holistic healing should work alongside allopathic care when necessary. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Northwich Podcast. On today's episode, we have back Alexander Moor from Practical Occult. Alexander is a coach and instructor of the occult and esoteric arts, and if you are wanting to upgrade your practice, he is the man you want to see. He's the inventor of what he calls the sorceress method, and he is helping experienced sorcerers all around the world to level up and up their game. And so if you want to learn more, check out practicaloccult.com. And how's it going today, Alex?
It's going fantastic. I'm living the life I try to teach other people to live.
Fantastic. That's great news.
It's exactly what we want to hear. So it's been about 8-9 months, I think, since we had you on the show, and you had been, diving into some new methods and some new experiments to get things rocking and rolling, and you were really just kind of starting to begin the sorceress method and training other witches and sorcerers around the world on how to actually apply the knowledge that they have rather than just be in the armchair, so to speak. How have things developed for you over the last 8 months, and what insights do you have to share with us today?
Well, I mean, to say I'm proud of my students is actually the understatement of the year. I mean, I've seen people go from one level of life where things were pretty good, or in some cases kind of shitty, to in less than a year with magic applied properly change their lives. I mean, I've seen miracles, dude. Like, I've seen my students go from genuinely unsure about anything except for the fact that magic is real to having a charmed life like they always wanted to. I mean, I've had to evolve and fine tune some things in my methods, of course, as you will for anything that you do for that long and for different individual people. But I mean, dude, the thing that I come away with the most is seeing that truly it is not necessarily just the system of magic you do, but what you do with it that counts. Because I mean, I've had people who, like, just for some clarification, I'm a lion skin belt Goetia doer person, for instance. Like, I have all the tools, all the stuff, everything you need to have to do the thing the grimoire way. And I've been lucky enough to train in certain kinds of traditional witchcraft, a lot of North American folk magic, conjure and stuff. I've been lucky with mentors I've had in my life. But when I started this, I had sort of a more heavy preference for traditional magic kind of view, because it was what I had seen so far in my life change the most. And man, I'm telling you, I've seen people who came to me, they're like, I do insert random chaos magic thing here that I didn't hear about. I do the gateway experience from the Monroe Institute. I do this, that, and the other random things that either I didn't know about or I had, to be honest, very little respect for. And I've seen people use those methods to change their lives just with applying them correctly. So, I've been humbled, and I've learned probably as much from my students as they've learned from me.
Isn't that so key, though? It's so great what we all can learn from each other. And as long as we're open to learning, it's endless. It's so fantastic to use other modalities than we're actually used to using, and then just totally up leveling. It's fantastic.
No, agreed. I mean, you have to be a lifelong learner in magic, as with anything else, right? I mean, it's like,
Right.
you know, one of my hobbies is I'm a guitar player, for instance, and some of the best guitarists I know go to workshops still after, you know, learning for 30 years. They'll go to the new thing, or they'll take new classes online, or they'll do whatever. And I'm kind of the same. I mean, if I see like a magic course online and I'm like, okay, I'll drop 50, 60 bucks on this. And if I walk away with one new trick, that was worth the price of admission for me, because
Totally.
there's
Looking
that.
for all the nuggets everywhere. There's so many.
You have to. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like I teach people who come to me at what I hope to be an intermediate level. Like there are plenty of people who will teach you from the ground up. That's not me. Like I'm not the guy who's going to teach you basic math in that way. I have nothing but respect for those people, but I feel like there's not enough that comes after. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people want to go find the witch in the woods to teach them and stuff, and that's great. You know, again, I've learned face to face with a bunch of mentors in my life, and I realize how lucky I am for that, but also how rare that is, because sometimes you just don't, you know, it depends on where you live. I mean, you know, shit, if you live in like the middle of an urban area and you're like, I want to learn Eastern European witchcraft, and I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, well, you know, you're not gonna.
Yeah.
You know, you got to go. You got to learn different languages. You got to do all that stuff. And some people did that. I was lucky enough to learn many things. And it's weird actually. Something that I've been saying to people that they've not liked very much on Instagram is like I recommended this automatic writing practice to people to do, to speak to their spirits if they're having a hard time hearing them or seeing them, you know, really get into like a trance state and do that. And there are plenty of methods to do that. And they all seem kind of woo woo, and people were kind of they're kind of shit talking me for it. And I was kind of laughing because I learned these methods initially from the most deep down south conjure woman you'd ever meet. I mean, she was that thing, and she could do wild shit. She could do Harry Hyatt level, you know, folklore shit. But she'd be like, "Oh yeah, you know, I sit down and I talk to Jesus with my pen and my pen, or my pen and my paper." And she could learn things from you. She could know your secrets. You know, she could look like she was taking notes across the room, and she would be able to read you for filth, literally and figuratively, and just that kind of stuff. And so I kind of brought up, I'm like, you know, just because it's packaged in like a new agey package, you have to think about, like, if a shaman from Nepal were to say the same thing to me, would I immediately be like, oh no, you're the man, you're the best, you know what you're talking about because you're exotic? Isn't that kind of insulting? Like, isn't that kind of a shitty thing to do? Because you don't know if that guy's any good, especially like that's where the language barrier comes in. You don't know how good the exotic person is until they prove it.
Right.
But if there's a $15 book you can buy and then test yourself, what do you got 15 bucks in a couple hours of your time? I'm just saying, you know, but people need to be given that sort of thing. They need to be given that sort of straight talk about, like, you know, it's so much about the effort you put into training certain skills, because so many systems train the same thing, right? Like I'll give you a perfect example. You go to learn traditional witchcraft from someone who is a traditional witch. They're going to focus a lot on astral projection, being good at it, like for real good at it. Not like I've achieved this once or twice. Like, no, I can do this effectively and reliably, and I can go reach out and touch you with it. You know what I mean? They're gonna teach you how to talk to the spirits of plants. They're gonna teach you how to do sympathetic magic and effectively anchor a part of someone's soul into a poppet, say. They're gonna teach you all that stuff. Gateway experience from the Monroe Institute, astral projection, speaking to your non-physical friends, taking energy from living things and putting them elsewhere. These are one-to-one the same skills. Having done both,
Yeah.
they are objectively the same thing, but people will poo-poo something they can get, you know, transported to their home via like audio files. But they're also the same people who are never going to be willing to, you know, go trek through Eastern Europe to find a witch that'll teach them. So it's excuses. And I am glad that part of the thing I teach my students and that they have taught me is that, you know, you need to look deeper. You need to figure out what actually works and then apply it, because if you don't, you're going to be stuck where you are. And that's another thing I keep seeing in occultists, especially after you teach people, after you teach them and you take them from one stage to life-changing shit. I mean, we're talking about doubling your income, getting the partner of your dreams, getting in good shape, losing all this weight, stopping illness. I mean, I've seen them do all of these things and more by being
Awesome.
diligent.
Diligent and so consistently doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I give them practices. Literally, you know, because like a good example, a lot of the first few lessons of the method are identical. The first 4 methods are going to be the same for everybody, because I have people build spirit houses. I have people, you know, contact certain beings and do certain things depending on what their traditions are. That creates that they raise your floor of failure. They make it so that even if you fuck something up, you can never fail as low as you could have previously. And for a lot of people, that's the difference by itself between success and failure. And I have them maintain these things. Because I mean, I also, you know, I have people who they have jobs, they have families, they got shit to do. They're not like me where you're this is all I do. So I have the luxury of training magic as much as I like. You know,
See, you really are living the dream.
I quite am, but that's the thing. This is my only income, and I have made. I'm not the wealthiest man on earth, but I'm doing better than I ever have before in anything else. And you know, I tell people, I'm like, you know, your dreams can be made your dreams. The magic will do it if you continually apply the magic. But also, it's also like not being too proud to admit that sometimes one spell isn't going to do it. Like sometimes you're going to have to stack months and months worth of workings to get something. I'll give you an example. I never name my clients, but, you know, dude wanted the girlfriend. And that's another thing. In client work in general, whether I'm coaching or whether I'm doing divinations or whether I'm doing spells for people, the romance question is the hardest in the industry. So, you know, guy wants the ideal girlfriend. Guy is fuck ugly. You know, we're talking about just depressing, right? Like this man is starting at like Danny DeVito levels of you know, handicap with no wealth of any kind to speak of, other than he's good enough that he can afford, you know, my hourly rate. So over 8 months, we walked him through, you know, this is the magic that loses the weight. This is the magic that gets you a discount at the dentist because you don't have, you know, the best dental insurance to give you the straighter teeth that you need. This is the magic that clears your skin up. This is the magic that does this. And then, you know, he's making more money. He's doing the stuff. He's getting spiritual. He's getting his spirits ongoing. You know, we do the magic. This is the magic that summons the kind of lover you want. Because I don't teach compulsory love magic. It works. I'll never be the guy that tells you it doesn't work because I don't lie to people. That's another thing I see a lot in the occult sphere. They'll lie. Like, oh, there's no magic that influences the will of other people. This is a lie. I'm not saying you should do it, but if you're foolish enough to think it doesn't exist, you can't defend against it. But it's so I teach him all this. You know, we work through this again month after month, seeing this guy's progress, seeing him crush it harder at his job, seeing him get promotions twice in a year when they hardly get promotions at his particular industry once every 4. You know, he's losing the weight. He summons the partner he wants, but it's not over yet. And he was kind of like, well, I don't know. Things aren't going the way. Like I went on a couple dates. I'm not going that well. And I'm like, you think it's over? The price of glorious life is constant battle, my friend. Like you must. So strife is your friend. Strife is your girlfriend. That's not your girlfriend. Like, you know, that's what I do. But I tell them, like, you know, okay, you're gonna do magic. You're gonna dream incubate. And you're gonna dream about what you need to do, what you need to say to win her heart, what you need to do this correctly. You're gonna do magic to ask all of the hard questions, and he did. And I look forward to them being engaged next year because that's his new project.
Fantastic.
Because I teach people strategies about how to live magically.
Yeah.
If you were to break it down to what I teach into one sentence, I teach you how to live magically. And
that should be the goal.
It should be, but the thing is, it's a practice. You know, none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect about that. I don't wake up every day and go, oh well, I'm eating a bowl of Cheerios. How am I going to magically make this? I should be like, how am I going to literally enchant this food that I'm going to eat to train the water in my body to make my metabolism better? I should do that. We should all do that every time you consume water or any kind of food. You should enchant it to be more awesome. You should store your food in magical containers that you put servitors in to make it healthier, to remove toxins or whatever. You should do all these things. Do I remember to? No. Do I try to? Yes. And when I succeed, I do well, you know? So, but it is the practice of living that way and not panicking. Because another thing I teach is how to workshop failure. Because believe me, we've had to do a lot of that over the past few months. Not every spell succeeds. And, you know, these clients of mine, they're hinging their careers sometimes on these big magical leaps. You know, not that they don't do the work mundanely to build and structure everything, but they're hinging, you know, like, okay, well, you know, I hope I did the magic to make my boss give me this promotion. You know, I hope it works, because that's really what it comes down to. But there have been times when it didn't. And so we had
And
to
then
go
what?
back. You workshop it. You do your divination. You ask why. Like, I'll do the divination and then they'll do the divination at the same time, usually on Zoom. And we'll workshop it from there. You know, we'll ask why it didn't work, what you didn't know, what you could have known, what you could have done more of. And then there's magic. This is where things get a little bit bold, claimy, but I will happily stand on this. Then you do magic to fix the past. You do magic so that you didn't fuck up as bad as you think you did. And that shit will work in ways that will always shock you. But again, it's one of those big things that until you've done it, you don't know. But if you've done it enough, if you've road opened in the past enough for yourself, you know, whatever, whoever your road opening guy is, you know, for me, it's St. Peter, among others. But even that expedite will do that too, you know? I mean, how does he get things to happen so quickly if he can't affect the past? So, you know, things like that. But, you know, but I'll say that kind of thing. And a lot of it is things that I was lucky enough to be taught by people that a lot of people, I don't see people talking about. I don't see people talking. And I'm not saying that they should in like 101 courses, but, you know, it's the whole, what do they not tell you in the books kind of thing.
For sure. And, you know, it's one of those things where you can have all of the knowledge too, but if you don't have the mileage to go along with it, you're not ever going to work out those kinks. So it's, you know, like we were talking last time you were on the show, some people, you know, they have all these books but they've been sitting in the armchair for so long that, you know, all they have is a really good theory. They don't have, you know, the mileage to back it up. And once you start doing that, that's where you really start to flourish and you can start doing these experiments. Like once you realize that time isn't linear, like you said, or that you can, you know, do a spell on the past and it will profoundly change your future, you know, the wheels really start to get turning on where to go next.
Oh, sure. I mean, even other concepts like applied animism, realizing that, in my opinion, in my experience, everything has a spirit, not just plants or natural things, but like your cell phone has a spirit, your computer has a spirit, everything. I mean, if you don't, you know, and it's like, you know, a good example is I do playing card divination rather than tarot. It's how I do it. And I learned playing card divination from Charles Porterfield's books and his in an online class he did. And one of the things he talked about was, you know, he uses cards for spells. You know, like every card has a divinatory meaning and it also has a spell associated with it. And because a deck of playing cards is like $1.50, you don't care about burning your Ace of Hearts in a spell. Whereas like if you're a tarot guy and you spend $120 on that beautiful, you are not going to be like, I'm going to light the world card on fire to light my world on fire. You're not going to do that. You're going to be like, I'll buy this $17 maybe cheapy deck. But like, I've told people that and they're like, oh, well, but that's a man-made thing. I'm like, if you don't think that things that are made by people, things that are made in sweatshops or factories where people are happy to be there, don't contain energy. I'll give you another thing. This is the thing that I've been told by a couple of playing card people. How old is the Joker card? The Joker card is less than a century old, but in your mind, he's always been there.
Yeah.
And he will always be there because there's a spirit in there that's clever. And if you get to know that spirit, you can learn a whole lot and you can summon that spirit to do a number of things. But it's like, you know, teaching people these things, walking them through that. Because a lot of people who have come to me will have understandably rigid opinions about how magic works because they've only learned from courses or books. And to be honest, a lot of them haven't applied it that much. It's like I told you last time, I have people trained to failure with the magic. I'll be like, okay, we're gonna get 10 things. One is extremely mundane. You're gonna see a white cat or whatever. And the 10th thing is you're gonna be the Emperor of the Moon. And you will do a spell for all 10 of these things, one after the other. And the level you fail at is where you are. And that's where we go from there. You know, and people, it's humbling. I still to this day do that training too. That's another thing. I don't teach anything I don't do. You got to figure
That's
out
great.
where you are. And sometimes swinging for things that you don't think you can get, and then you fail, and then you workshop it. Well, why can't I be the emperor of the moon? Because there's no oxygen on the moon, Alex. That's why you can't be the emperor of the moon. Because the lunar spirits are like, not going to let that happen, Alex, my dude. But asking these questions, being that person who's willing to be like, no, fuck it. Am I magical or am I not? Is this really real or is it not? Because that's another thing I tell people. I'm like, are you or are you not spending $300 an hour to talk to me about magic? You must believe in it to some degree. I will help you prove it to yourself. So you will live and breathe and understand, perceive in the world magically. You know what I mean? I've taken people who couldn't see spirits or hear spirits at all, and in 8 months, they have had experiences where they have seen them very tangibly. But the thing is, I tell you the truth about how that's taught. You know, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's one or the other. You know, here's a bit of a sample. You train the automatic writing to hear spirits, because you know you're writing it down, you hear the voice in your head when you're writing. Well, if it's not your voice that you're hearing, it's not you moving your hand. If you're thinking, wow, this is happening in front of me and there's a spirit riding my hand and it's actually doing this, is fucking crazy. I'm seeing all this stuff. This isn't my handwriting. You're starting to get there. Do that enough, eventually you're going to be like chilling alone at home at night, like, Alex. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna get startled. You know, you train your psychic vision internally, astrally, again and again and again, and you're going to think you're daydreaming, you're going to think you're making shit up, you're going to think this, that, the other thing. But then eventually you're going to turn a corner and there's going to be someone standing there, and it's not a person. But it's also about training. You know, it's about doing the hard thing. You know, you want to be an athletic level magician by practicing 2 spells a month. That's not how that works.
Well, exactly.
Training and
one
trusting.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that I do is I relate it to martial arts. You know, you would never ever walk into the jujitsu studio or the karate studio and walk up and go, okay, I'm a black belt today. Show me the final katas. No, you're going to go and you're going to start at white belt and you're going to train an hour or 2 a day for a year or 2, and then you're going to get maybe up to your next belt, and then you're going to do the same thing over, but you're going to train it over and over and over and actually refine it and get good at it. And, you know, I love using karate as the thing because, you know, everyone's been to the karate class where you're standing there with your fist out and your sensei comes over and he moves your fist half a centimeter and twists it just a little bit and then goes, okay, now you're good. You know, it's the same with your magic. You might know how to hold that fist out or put that candle on that altar, but you might not know the subtle nuance of why it's not working, right?
Oh, sure. But I mean, if you want to compare martial arts too, going back to the thing I said about people and judging systems. So I'm by no means still a martial artist, but I did do kickboxing when I was younger. And there was a really good boxing gym, like Western boxing gym near me. And I was like, no, I want to do kickboxing because they use their whole body and it's going to be better because there's kicks in kickboxing. And the one guy at the boxing gym, he was an older guy, and he said to me, he's like, oh, you know, that's fine, but you wait. He's like, you know, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, a lot of MMA people will start to be going to boxers and asking what's up. A lot of jiu-jitsu people will go to college wrestlers and ask what's up because it's all about using the body to fight. But if someone's got a trick you don't have, they still have that trick you don't have. And, you know, lo and behold, he was right. And so I've seen the same thing because everything goes in cycles, right? Everything goes in trends and fads and everything. So, you know, it's Tantra for a while, and then it's folk magic, and then it's ceremonial magic, then it's ATRs, then it's this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, there are stereotypes that we hold about the efficacy of certain systems that we've never seen proven. You know what I mean? Like using myself as an example. When I was a kid growing up, because I was lucky enough to have parents who do magic to teach me, I was like, oh, well, you know, there's no Wiccan that can do real magic because they don't do this, that, and the other. Well, you know, then I met a few that did conjure, that did hoodoo, that had like a structured practicum behind them. And I had been doing folk magic as well. And so I understood that. I saw that. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're doing conjure. Like, no, I'm doing witchcraft. Like, well, no, you got your High John root and you got your candles and you got your this. No, you are doing conjure. And they're like, no, that's not what I heard it called. I just know it works. Then you're face to face with you being a dumbass. You're face to face with being like, fuck, he's these threefold law motherfuckers can do what I can do. I'm not that cool anymore. Like, I'm not that slick anymore. What the hell? Now, of course, a couple of them that I talked to would tell you the truth. They would take you behind closed doors and be like, that threefold law shit is not real. We just say that so that no one's mad at us during the satanic panic, right? Like, they would do shit like that. Some of them anyway. I'm sure there were people who were every bit as cringe as we think, but the point still stands. You have to look at the fact that the most successful people, and here's another thing. I was asked by a colleague of mine, dear friend, okay, man, at the end of it all, what's the most powerful magic? What's the best magic? And I'm like, fuck. And I hated that because like I'm in a Discord server, no number, but I'm in a Discord server with the Gateway Experience Monroe tapes people. And it is the least occult magical oriented thing, but they teach you all the core skills. I've seen more success stories in that server about people changing their lives. Oh, I lost 80 pounds in 4 months. Oh, I got a girlfriend. Oh, I got a boyfriend. Oh, I got married. Oh, I got engaged. I got the great job. I healed my cancer. I've seen all that in there more than anywhere else ever in my life. Like, just the sheer numbers of people, and people with receipts. People who will be like, this is my x-ray. This is my new x-ray. Photographic evidence of like the cancer is gone. You're like, holy shit. And I'm over here like, I would chant for 4 hours in a circle after fasting for 3 days, hoping a demon would show up to fix cancer. And this motherfucker did it after training the same thing for a year every day. Interesting. So, you see that. And so at the end of the day, I don't really have that answer. But I know what I've seen, and I know the answer is not what you think, because and I'm not even trying to say this in a disparaging way, but there are a lot of people who practice very traditional forms of magic whose lives are absolute shit shows. And I don't mean wealth is not my goal. I'm the witch of the forest and I can make trees move with my mind. I mean, I live in my mother's basement, but I'm grand high whatever of this thing, and my magic is amazing. But I haven't been, I haven't seen a woman, let alone touched one in 5 years. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And you're like, is it though?
Yeah.
Like, is it though? I mean, again, maybe people from the country you learned it from are slick, but are you? Like, that's the thing. I mean, by their works, you should know them, right?
But maybe Mama cooks really good and has a nice basement.
There is nothing wrong with a nice ass basement, but that's not the basement we're talking about. We all know there are levels of basement, just like there's levels of magic. Is that a finished basement? Does that have a dirt floor? Is that a hovel rather than a basement? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, my mother's hovel. But like,
well, and they're probably really, really good at, doing a little money spell and throwing out a GoFundMe to get $15 for beer on their birthday, but they really, really living the life, right?
No, but on the real, that is a thing that people don't fucking talk about enough. And again, I'm not saying that material wealth is the end all be all of success. It's the same thing I teach my students. An uncanny life is the end all be all of proof, because it exists with whatever form it takes for that individual. But you know it when you see it. Just like magic when you feel it. You know it when you see it. You're like, that dude, that chick, their life is astonishing. They're the kind of person who doesn't just fail upwards, but like skyrocket fails upwards in industries. Maybe some magic going on there. You know what I mean? There was a Thai sorcerer called For Salaton, who before he died, he had something like 60 wives and was like famous for all this like amazing love magic he would do. That is a magician that did the thing. Like, but when I have people come to me, they're like, I don't know, could I really do that? And I'm always like, what one person has done, another can do. You have to believe that you can do it. You have to know that you can do it. Because again, the same thing I asked them, all the things you want in the world exist. They're all out there. Why can they not be yours? You're crushed. They're with someone else right now. Sounds like your fault. Sounds like you didn't. Sounds like you failed to act. Don't fail twice. Do the thing. I promise you, it hurts at first, but it works. Again, we court strife. We court the discomfort of realizing that we weren't the magician we thought we were, maybe. But that's the first step to becoming that thing.
And you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. Like, you have to force yourself to step through that door And, when you hit that wall and then you realize, oh, fuck, this is actually just a locked door. And then you find that key, then you unlock the door and then you walk through it. And it's like, oh, there's like a whole other life on this other side. And here I was thinking that door was a wall, right? Like it's.
Oh, 100%, man. And like, that's one of the things that's been the most rewarding about teaching these people. Because again, all walks of life, different countries across the planet, all kinds of people from different cultures, different goals, different everything, coming together using different kinds of magic to achieve the same level of awesome result. Like I've had a couple of clients who've graduated, so to speak, because they no longer need what I teach. They learned everything, they applied everything, and they got everything they needed, and they moved on with their lives. And I keep in touch with them, but like, I mean, dude, we're talking about like my birthday and Christmas every year is like this Christmas I got gifts from clients because they were like, I did this because of what you taught me. That is worth and more in a more wholesome way than I even expected. Like I am so deeply proud of that.
Such validation, right? That's so good.
Well,
So
also
good.
like I made the world a more magical place.
Mm-hmm.
Like I unironically put more magic in the world by making people better at magic.
Yeah, absolutely. That leads into my question I'm asking everyone on this season's podcasts is what is your ripple? Because my word for 2023 is ripple. So I like to know what ripple everyone is going to do for 2023. So I think you just kind of answered that for us, Alex.
No, I mean that is my hope. That is my hope. Because I mean, again, do I like the paycheck? Yeah, I do. Do I like what I learned from them and the things that I learned how to train? Totally. But like, do I like? Because that's another thing too. Like, as someone who grew up around magic, I always felt uniquely fortunate that I never labored under the burden of proof. My folks proved it to me as a kid that it worked. They didn't let me take their word for it. They showed me. And from there, that has always been a thing. Like I try to explain to some students the idea of a virtue versus a vice in terms of what it can do for you. Like vices feed you. It's not a shameful thing to say it does. Even bad things. Like if you've ever struck someone out of anger, it feels righteous in the moment, but it does. You feel good. If you get laid, you feel good. You overeat, you go get drunk, you feel good. Your vice feeds you, but your virtue regenerates you. And my virtue for my whole life was faith in magic. A core faith that like mystics have in their religion, I have in magic. So every time I see this, it is faith affirming. It has regenerated me time and again. I've never been happier in my life on a pure level because I traffic in miracles by handing them to other people, handing them the tools to make this happen.
That's so good. That's just a whole pile of goodness right there.
So then that actually kind of leads into my question that I'm asking everybody this season, and I'll do it a little bit different for you because the question is for everyone else is going to be, what is 1 to 3 things that you have seen and done with magic that made you truly believe that this is real and that you want to practice it? But being that you have, lived your life that way, I think it's a lot more fitting to say, what are 3 things or, down to 1 thing that you would suggest other people do so that they can become as faithful in magic or believe that it is real, something that they can actually do right now to begin to change their life?
All right, I'll give you 3 in a tiered order. The first one is the hard one. Learn to astral project. It sucks, takes forever. Nobody is truly good at it. Anyone who tells you like, oh yeah, I have been a master at this since the first time I tried, I'm like, you lie to me, sir. Learn to astral project, learn to get good at it. There's a book called The Mentalist's Handbook by Clint Marsh. It is one of the best resources on not just how to develop yourself psychically effectively that I've ever seen, but it teaches an astral projection technique that can be built into so much else when it comes to true witchcraft and true conjure and true magic. Like I recommend it to everybody. Like I probably have spiked that man's earnings and he doesn't even know me. So Clint Marsh, if you ever see this, thank you.
You need to add that on the end of the podcast.
No, it's really it is I swear by that book. It's so good. The second thing you could do is road opening. Road opening spells, in my opinion, are the most important spells in 2023. Roads are created, destroyed, renewed, renamed every instant of every day with the digital world. Road open for something that you really want. Road open for better luck. Road open for better success. Close roads to failure. Another thing I teach in my training is like, we actively curse spirits of failure. We actively curse spirits of disease. Because again, everything has a spirit. Everything is animistically true. If you are capable of astral projection in a real way, you can see what I'm talking about. You can go and find them. You can go and fight them. A lot of traditions of various kinds of witchcraft in Europe, the Benedante and the Malandante in Italy, they fought each other, but the Malandante would summon spirits of pestilence and disease and shit, and the Benedante would fight them. They would fight those spirits, not just the people that sent them. So if those spirits can be summoned, then they exist. So spirits of bad luck exist, and if they cling to you, and everyone knows somebody, right, who just has a pall over them, curse those things, make them afraid of you, make them never want to darken your door. I mean, take war to them in a way that frightens you a little bit. Refuse to suffer under their yoke ever. But if someone didn't tell you that it was possible, you may never have thought it was possible. But that's one thing I teach my students. It's a free thing I'm happy to give out. Do that and wait a month, and you will see everything in your life enhance. And I guess another thing, to make a person believe in magic, to really prove it, I'm between two, but I said I'd give you three. I think that another thing you could probably do is write down. Here's an even better one. People don't have the kind of friends that they should have for the most part. People's friendship circles suffer, especially post-COVID. Write down the qualities of the friends you want and do a spell to make better friends. Literally find more people. I'll give you a story from a client of mine, only because I won't name her, but she did give me permission to share the story on podcasts. When I ask my clients, where's your scarcity? Like, what is the thing you hurt for in your life? She's like, I never really had good friends. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to summon you some friends. So she's a Sailor Moon fan, big anime fan. So she went to each of the 7 internal planets and she summoned a female friend to be her lifelong friend that represented qualities of those internal planets. And then she showed me a picture of them all cosplaying as Sailor Moon characters, like from a convention they went to. I have that picture framed on my desk because it's perfect. I mean, if you have the right kind of people in your life, again, just real friendships, there's magic in that, as woo-woo as that sounds. But again, you look at your life, let's say you're in your 30s, you're busy, you got a hard career. You're like, how do I fucking make friends? How do I meet people? Do that. And again, put something specific. They will be this tall. They will have these hobbies. They will have these interests. Do that spell. Bring that specific thing into your life. And then every time you talk to that person, every time you have an interaction with that person, you'll be like, well, shit, I did this.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. I love that. That's, and speaking as somebody with that type of experience, we growing up in our age, the big movie at the time was Practical Magic, right? And there's the little girl that does the spell to summon the guy that doesn't exist. And then what do you know, at the end, she gets it. Well, my thing was, I wanted to see if I could actually do that. So I did exactly that. And I came up with my own spell, whatever, wrote it all down. And I wrote down things that should be impossible to have stacked together. Well, I'm married to that person today, right? So that for me is one of my things, that this is fucking real. Like, there is no way that I ever would have found this person with these 45 traits that had to coexist, right?
There was a book. It was a mundane, like not a magical book. It's called The Compound Effect. And it's about how like incremental habits improve your life. And
on my shelf.
Is it? Okay, so you'll remember in that book, if it's in fact the book I'm thinking of, and I think it is, but I really hope I'm not wrong, where the guy writes down the qualities of the woman he wants to marry.
Yeah.
Down to the details about how she would treat waitstaff and stuff. And then he writes down twice as many qualities about the man he has to be to have her, to keep her. And he focused on that so much, and he kept going back to it, and he like Napoleon Hill manifested that shit, right? And so that's actually an exercise I give my students, because again, the love life question is one we tackle. We tackle the hard things, you know, and if they're not in the relationship they want. Now, the worst was the client who was married but not in the relationship that he wanted, and I knew from session one, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fucking messy. I need to talk to you about divorce magic and like things that'll come, because I mean, it was a situation where I'm like, this guy's gonna skyrocket his life, and he is not in a healthy relationship and not in a healthy marriage, and he's gonna be able to make better choices. But the point is, that's real, dude. Like, you know, asking specifically for what you want in life. Like I said, I have people do that. I have them write down the kind of person they want, the kind of person they need to be, and enchant for both. Like, because that's another thing. That's the thing a mentor of mine taught me, was future enchantment. You know, actively doing spells for so far in the future to spike a stake into the ground of the future landscape of your life that will always pull you towards it, no matter what. You know what I mean? Things like, okay, well, I want to, I don't know, lose this much weight by this much time. And I want that to be a thing. I believe Jason Miller would have called it a macro enchantment. So, you know, you do that, and then you are pulled towards it. But even if you start to fuck up, you're gonna find that, like, oh, I can't eat the junk food in my house because it suddenly went bad, or, you know, I'm just not hungry anymore, or, you know, all my friends I used to go drinking with are sober now. You know what I mean? Like, you have things like that happen. But like, that's the thing. I mean, you know, failure proof your life, I guess, is a great way to put it. You know, give yourself the honest examination of like, what am I going to do to fuck this up? Like, what am I likely to do to fuck this up? And then enchant so you don't do it.
That makes total sense. So that kind of segues really well into our number one asked question on Patreon after your last interview. And so that was, what is road opening? What is the difference between a road opener and a blockbuster? And then could you maybe give us some of the broad strokes? You don't have to give us a necessary spell or anything, but some of the broad strokes based on road opening, blockbusting, and road closing.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. No, I'll even give you some whole ass spells, because it's not that hard to get started. So a road opener literally generates opportunities. So functionally speaking, you are in a business, and your business sells merchandise online, and you go, okay, I want to do a road opener so that the clients that will buy my product come to my product. What is happening on a metaphysical level is that they, you know, the spirits you're working with will make pathways astrally as well as physically to those people. They'll see your product, they'll see an ad, they'll turn left when they should have turned right one day, and they'll find, you know, an advertisement for your product or whatever, and then they'll find their way to your site. Word of mouth, all kinds of things. You know, the ripples of that go very, very far, and you're not going to be able to find them all. And blockbusting is a far more aggressive form of road opening that blows shit up, to be honest. Like, a lot of people will use you know, dirt from a place that's been dynamited, for example, or like recently in my neighborhood there was a house that probably was a meth lab that exploded.
Oh,
And I got some dirt from that, because I'm like, well, I want explosion house dirt as materia. But the thing is, so I heard it quoted by a guy who goes by Hoodoo Moses online, where like, you should be careful about blockbusters. If there's anything in your life you don't want to risk, you probably don't want to do a blockbuster. If nothing in your life is going right and you're okay burning it all to the ground, blockbuster's fine. It'll get you out. It'll get you a different life, but there will be collateral damage. An example of how that could work, an ill-advised thing, and I didn't do this, but I've heard enough stories of this same story again and again. So, you know, person is like, oh, you know, I'm in a relationship that's not very good, and I'm too much of a chicken shit to just break up with them. So I did a road opener for, you know, a better relationship to show up in my life. And it didn't happen because I never leave my house. Right? Like, I never go looking. Well, fuck it, I'm going to do a blockbuster. 2 weeks later, well, my girlfriend cheated on me and left me, and the guy she left me with beat me up and stole my car.
yike.
But, you know, when I was at the hospital, I met the cutest fucking nurse. and don't, we're going on a date. Like that's a blockbuster, right? Like you gotta, things are gonna be a little weird. So how to do a road opener really quick. You go to a crossroads, any crossroads that has dirt either in the middle of it or on the four corners of it if it's paved. You get dirt from each of the corners. You put a penny or 3 pennies, depending on your tradition or however you feel, into each hole to pay the crossroads spirit for the dirt. You take the dirt back, you make a miniature crossroads on a fireproof surface, you put a candle in the center, maybe you add some road opening oil, maybe you don't. If you're a psalm type of person, you pray Psalm 23 so that your roads are always open, all that good stuff. If you're not, you do whatever. You pray to Mercury, you pray to Ganesh, you get say an expedite going, you get even just saying the spirit of the crossroads from which I took this dirt, help me open my roads. You get your petition, maybe you put it under the candle, maybe you put it under the plate itself if you don't want the petition to light on fire, because maybe you don't. And then if you're really slick, you get some skeleton keys to open the doors, and you put 4 of those little tiny bastards. You can get them for super cheap on Amazon. You put one of them at the terminating point of the cross you made with the soil from the crossroads. You burn the candle down. When it's done, you take all the remains, not the whole plate, unless the plate exploded or something, but you take all the remains in the petition to the crossroads and you cast it into the center of the crossroads. And you're like, I did the spell, make it happen. That's your very, very basic road opener that a lot of people still swear by to this day, and I still do often. Very simple, very effective. Working with a bunch of spirits on a bunch of different levels, and you can't ask for more than that. Now, when it comes to closing roads, this is a complicated thing that a lot of people don't understand really how to handle, and that's cool. So besides closing roads to individual things like failure or disease or anything like that,
How about to bad humans?
No. So that's I would be kind of careful about that, though. Be specific.
Okay.
Be specific about what kind of bad humans you don't want.
So could you choose your bad humans that you want to close those roads to?
You can make them. You can name them even
Okay.
specifically. Like for example, I had a client pay for a spell to get away from an abusive ex, and I closed the roads of this person to finding her. And he was unable to. Now that ritual is going to be a little more complicated. If you're going to close the roads to a specific person, you want to have a link to that person. Maybe you're going to add confusion oils, poppy seeds, mustard seeds, vandal root, any kind of like confusion materia that you prefer. You're going to want to add that. You're going to want to stack the deck if it's important. Another thing, this is kind of a spicy thing, but I will give it. Let's say you have a partner who's hotter than you, like way hotter than you, just fucking amazing. Or I'll give you 2. I'll give you 2 examples of the same thing. You're working mom at home. You had 3 kids. You're tired. Babies are loud. Everything's going on. You think, oh man, the husband, he's in shape. He's at the gym. He's doing this thing. The secretary's there. The secretary's at work. Tale as old as time. I'm gonna close the roads of that bitch to even looking at him. I'm gonna close the roads of that. That will never ever happen. It will not happen. I will not lose what is mine. Other side, to quote a very, very savage take, your girlfriend's on Instagram. Is she your girlfriend or Instagram's girlfriend? Who gets the cute pictures first? Is it you or the gram? Well, if it's Instagram, her DMs are full. And some of those guys are cuter than you. Some of those guys make more money than you. Some of those guys are funnier than you. Not funnier than me, but funnier than you maybe. But like, so you're like, I'm going to close the roads to her DMs to anyone better than me. People worse than me could totally be there, but people better than, no, I'm not letting that happen. Because sometimes stemming the flow of the thing that will cause you to fail or cause your life to fall apart is a thing. The world is not a kind place. I will always say that. I will always stress that. Sometimes you got to get your hands dirty. I'm not saying you have to be a fucking war criminal with your magic. I'm not saying you have to do compulsory anything, but I am saying that sometimes you need to take sober stock of your life and the likelihood of things going wrong, perhaps with divination as well. And again, being like, do I want to suffer? Just naming your fears and closing the roads to them coming true is not a terrible idea. And you can do that with the exact same spell, but turn the keys inward to lock them.
Okay.
Instead of pointing them outward. And then just say, and then saying it, you know what I mean? Like I close the roads to this thing. And instead of bringing the remains back to the crossroads, you'll bury them.
And anywhere, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter where.
pretty much anywhere, honestly. But you know, and we can go through details. You know what I mean? Like if the woman who doesn't want her husband to cheat, she would probably have a link to him or something, and she'd bury it in her backyard to keep him at home. That's an old school one right there. Although be careful, audience, if you do that, and then you end up, you know, wanting to move house with your partner, you're going to want to unearth that shit because he's not going to want to move because he's stuck there. That's his place now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So, you know, but this is the thing. And I think that that's another problem with occultists in certain parts of the mainstream where they won't name problems. Everyone wants everything to be very sanitized and very I don't want to. We want to say love and light because at least love and light people will name scarcity, will name problems. You know, we'll be like, oh no, we can. You know, fucking Neville Goddard was more than happy to be like, you know, you deserve wealth and riches and you don't have it right now. But like, no, a lot of people because they want to hedge their bets, right? They don't want to have to tell you the truth that like, no, sometimes you're gonna have to fight a little fucking dirty to get what you want. Like what do you think you're special? You don't get any strife? No, we court strife. In every form it takes. It is your friend. It teaches you. You don't learn any damn thing from ease. You learn everything from when things are hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that, Alex. That was very eye-opening, and I'm sure that more than answers the number one question, because I must have gotten that at least 3-4 dozen times. What the hell is a road opener? How do I do it? And it's like, well, we'll ask him next time he's on.
Now you have. And again, that's not the only way to do it, by the way. There are plenty of other ways. That's just the easiest way that if you have a tea light candle and a neighborhood, you can make it happen.
Absolutely. And there's lots of, road opening spells available for free online that you can find and things like that. And if you really, really want a good strategy, we know a guy that we can send you to.
We got a guy. We always got a guy.
It's always good to have a guy.
We even have a road opener candle in our lineup.
Well, that might be the thing that would be the thing to supercharge the road opener spell, because if you want to add some oomph, because again, sometimes roads are harder to open than others.
Absolutely. So I know you were taking a bunch of notes there, Ma. What questions do you have jump up to your mind?
Well, you said that you've tweaked your classes for this year. Do you want to let us know what the tweaking has entailed and where we can expect to see you go in 2023? Well,
the tweaking has entailed a lot of So in addition to the coaching, I'm putting out a lot of one-off classes on the website. A class on like basic necromancy. There's going to be one on money magic that's going to be coming out. I have 2 on protection. I also give my students those classes if I think it's like supplemental material that they need. Because but a lot of it has been me tweaking for people's lives, but also me doing a lot of work on the data science end. So like there is one class I want to put out, and I'm sure only 3 people are going to ever do it, and it's how to use data science effectively as an occultist. Because I think the research of the reality of the world, how it works and how it works for most people, is a thing that we as occultists intentionally avoid. It's been one of the things I am now more aggressive about pounding into my students, because just because you're special, and you are if you do magic, I'm the guy who'll tell you, you are fucking a shining beacon of awesome if you do this shit. However, you live in the world. You live in the world that everyone else lives in. And just because you do magic doesn't mean you're not subject to the same likelihoods that the world gives you unless you enchant against them. But how are you going to know what to enchant against unless you research it? Case in point, like when I do one-off spells for clients, I have often had people come to me and be like, I want a lover. Like, okay, cool. What you want? Well, he has to be above 6 feet tall and make 6 figures a year and do these things. And I'm like, okay, cool. Hey, you come into the Magic Man. I'll do it. But let's look at the percentage of the population of the North American continent that falls into that category. Let's look at where they live. Let's look at where you live, to let you know that when I summon this man and he shows up in your life, it will likely be long distance because you live in a small town in Idaho and he lives in Manhattan. So that's fine. He'll find you online. It'll work, but you got to lock it down. But also the data science will show you like what choices do these people make. Similarly, you got a guy who's like, I want a hot ass Instagram girlfriend. I'm like, all right, let's look at what their lives are like. Let's research where they tend to live, because they all tend to congregate in Los Angeles or Miami. Not literally all of them, but many. Where do you live? Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Well, maybe not for, well, I mean, you willing to travel or what? But it's things like that. And I try to bring people not only a good look at the world, but teach them how to look at the world. Like mundane people who are experts at data science and make careers off of it. Our governments, regardless of what country you live in, allocate billions of dollars to data science research. Why do you think that is? Our governments allocate billions of dollars to propaganda. Why do you think that is? I have my students learn these things. Like I actually will go and be like, today we are not learning any magic, or so you think. Like, we're learning how propaganda works, and we're learning to find the spirits of propaganda and how they affect you. What they have.
Okay, you might have like 2 more students in that class now.
Well, again, when
I like data.
Oh no! When the data science for magician class comes out, which probably going to be March for that one, because I need to actually do a bit more research on data science just to really fill it in and finalize it. More than happy to send you guys that one, because I'm just a nerd about it, and I'm over here like, man, I'll put out a class on love magic, and a bunch of people will buy it, and that's great. I love that. I'll put a class on like, no, this is going to make you better at magic. Crickets. You know what I mean? Like, fucking nobody wants it. Which is, it is what it is. It is the industry, but that's a way I've tweaked it. I've definitely tweaked my method based on, like, for example, I swapped the 3rd and 4th lesson in their order. The 3rd and 4th lesson are respectively protection and then increasing one's personal power in life. I used to give them protection first, and now I give them the personal power increase first, because if your goal is to, speed your life up and make the things better, I figured that was a smarter move. I figured that was a good timeline thing, even though I do think that protection and magic is good. But then again, I put out those classes, and I got like 24 emails whenever I was like, don't share your natal chart on the internet. People can print it out and do magic to you. Do not do that. And people are like, oh my God, I shared my natal chart. What do I do?
You didn't listen, first off.
You do some of that magic to affect the past.
You can use your natal chart to affect the past. Another thing I teach is the making a doll of yourself and then giving it offerings.
Oh, tell us more of that.
Well, just like you would any spirit. I mean, you are a spirit that pilots a body.
Yeah.
Let's say you're trying to learn astral projection like I suggested you did. And let's say you're like, hey, that shit's hard, man. My etheric body feels weak as fuck. And I'm training it, but how do I make it faster? I'm like, well, you can feed it by making just like you'd make a doll of anybody else, make one of yourself. And then give it offerings, give it incense, give it water. Before you go to bed, for example, give it a glass of water. Train it, have it, if you can summon your fetch, which, not everybody can, and that doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, make it go inside the doll and give it offerings. You know what I mean? This will strengthen you on pretty much every functional level. This is how
Absolutely.
we do the meta enchantment of it all, right? This is how we do the seeing to it that, everything works out the way you want it to with your magic, that it grows. Because it is training, but you can train smart as well as hard.
Absolutely. So now, just for clarity for the show, because like you said, there are numerous definitions of the fetch out there. In this instance, what would your definition of the fetch be?
Oh hell, this gets me in trouble with other people in traditional witchcraft circles, as everyone has their own fucking Okay, so your fetch is not your etheric body or your astral body by itself. It is a separate part of your spiritual body that lives pretty much in your abdomen, that can be sent out to act independently of you, to learn things, to go train with spirits that you can send out and then reabsorb, right? The body of light can be piloted by the fetch or you or both, but you can also pilot your fetch. It's different. It's like if the body of light is an astral thing, the fetch is more of an etheric, closer to mundane world thing. But again, I'll say that, and there'll be people who are excellent occultists who are fucking amazing, who have a different definition of the word, because we split hairs about terms especially when different languages are involved, who'll be like, no, that's not what that is at all. And they're amazing. And so you're like, what am I going to do? What am I going to tell you? You're wrong. Like that is how I define it.
Fantastic. Just so that everybody's on the same page and, we're all, and I would pretty much agree with you. That's basically how I teach what the fetch is as well. So
there you go. Well, good. As long as you're not like, well, incidentally, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That could be a spicy show.
I mean, hey, I'm all about the straight shooting spicy sex. But right before the interview, I was talking on the phone to a really good friend, and she was like, I appreciate your candor, but you could maybe be a little less candid. And I was like, no. We're not doing it. No, we're good. We're good the way we are, I think.
Yeah, that is not me today. And, I love that you're looking at the data science thing. And, the thing that really, when I started looking at, the percentages and the things like that to try and start basing magic on, and, you come up with 20 things that are hindering you and 20 things that'll project you forward and everything. I remember sitting there watching television one night, and this commercial comes up on YouTube, and it's a guy sitting there, and he's interviewing the owners of Lamborghini. And he's like, this is a very rare thing to have you guys on a show. This is, something that you guys, you're not seen anywhere in social media. You're not seen on TV. You're not seen anywhere. Why is that? And they said, well, quite simply, the people that buy Lamborghinis aren't sitting on Facebook. They aren't sitting here watching YouTube, and they're not on television. They're out creating their world. And that, that's one of those data science points where it's like, okay, if you want to be in that top 3%, you're not going to be sitting here for 4 or 5 hours a night watching fucking YouTube and television. Get out and kick yourself in the ass and start making those changes. And I think that's one of those first steps that, people don't step into. We all have that. Oh, I don't have the time to do that. I can't, make this happen. I guarantee you do.
I mean, you can steal the time. That is what people have done forever. But I think that raises an amazing point, though, especially when it comes to learning magic for its own sake as well. Like, one of the reasons why I tell people learn to astral project, it's hard, but do it. And I'm not amazing at it. Like, I'm functionally capable, but I'll be lying to you through my teeth if I said it worked every single time I tried. And it worked to the same degree every single time I tried. There are times when I've had it where I felt like I was fucking daydreaming. And I came back with, because I do remote viewing exercises with friends that also train. Like, we practice together. There are times when I'm like, I did not read that thing on the card correctly. I didn't, because it's just like a series of numbers someone writes on a card. They live in a different house. You remote view the thing and you try to get the numbers. There are times when I'm like, oh man, like I don't think I did. Then I got most of them right, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, cool. And there are times when you leave your body and you leave your body. You know what I mean? Like, you are really in it to win it. But the thing is, I told people, I'm like, yeah, that is a better source of entertainment than Netflix. That is a more powerfully life-affirming thing than, and again, I love me some YouTube. I'm not going to pretend like I don't. I watch more YouTube than I should because I have too many fucking hobbies, but I love them all. But like, but at the same time, it's like, what's a better way to spend your day? Literally astrally projecting, flying around your neighborhood, going and talking to spirits, learning more magic from spirits directly, or, rewatching The Office. I've actually never seen The Office. I'm told I'm terrible for that, but I'm told that The Office is the thing that people rewatch constantly. I rewatch the movie The Crow constantly, so because it can't rain all the time. But
exactly.
but no, like, so it's a thing, it's like it's you do the hard thing, you delay the gratification, and you have the success. And it's kind of these habits compound. And it's funny because some of my clients have taught me more about this than I've taught them, because they'll come to me and they'll be successful fucking people. Like, way more successful than I am at this point in my life, or I've ever been. And they'll be like, okay, cool, I'm good. I own these 3 companies, and I make this much money, and I have these properties that I'm renting out, and I do this magic, and I really just want to make my life better. And I'm like, oh, okay, what does that even look like? Because your life sounds fucking amazing to me. Like, oh, but it could be so much better. But then they actually answer my question. They show me how much better it can be, and I'm like, fuck, you're not kidding. You're not.
You have to learn to dream big, and they got there already, right? By doing it. And so
yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, they inspire
Just to
me
accelerate
to
it.
dream bigger and bigger in my
Yep.
life. I mean, it's like, you got to ask yourself, like, well, how high can it go? Like
Well,
it's a
and that's something that we talked about on the last time we had you on the show was, don't be afraid to have that big ask. Sometimes where you are and where your station is, you don't know just how big that ask can be.
it's absolutely true. But it's kind of like, so the people that I talked to before I even put the method together, right? Like I got the opportunity to talk to, interview, just sit with a bunch of successful occultists. And these are not people that you'll find on social media talking about it. These are not people, and again, not to disparage people on social media talking about it. I am that thing, you are that thing. But I mean, I remember sitting in one of the most opulent homes I've ever sat in, across from just a guy, like a Joe Everyman looking dude who had more magic than I have almost ever seen in a person. Who was just like, no, I did the Heptameron. Like I did that and I made my businesses grow, and then I did this magic and I did that, and then the spirits taught me how to do this, and then these are the strategies that I came up with. And I'm like looking around at this palace that he fucking lived in, that like he's letting me stay a night in because I had to travel to go there. And I'm like, you did all this with magic? And he's like, I absolutely did all this with magic. Because there's no way I could have done it. And he showed me the receipts, the ledgers, everything. He proved it to me. And like that was a humbling experience, because like there are things that you'll experience as a magician that will raise your standards for what's possible in some places, but not in others. I have done Goetia, stood across the circle from a spirit I could see, like I could see my hand. I have had that experience, that faith affirming, magic affirming experience. But I was still the same person who was so much of a coward that I couldn't look at that man's house and go, this can be mine. And that is a thing you got to look at in yourself, and don't be cruel to yourself about it, but ask yourself, like, why is this possible and not that? What is the difference? If I can do one, how hard can the other really be? It's just time I have to spend.
And limiting beliefs, right?
Oh,
like
no,
he didn't care. Whereas the rest of us were like,
well, I think a lot
really,
of it
I don't know if that's really for us.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is that you're
Not.
bullied. Yeah, a lot of it is that you're bullied into not believing something should be for you. Because you'll see people, and it's funny because there's an exercise that a friend gave me a long time ago, and it was, if you really want to know what's wrong with you, ask someone who fucking hates you. Like you literally find someone who doesn't like you and be like, I want you to tell me every fucking thing that's wrong with me. Oh, they'll do it. They'll be happy to do it. And after they're done talking about the bullshit that they don't like about you, they'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you what you need to hear. I did that once, and I was told that I was an entitled son of a bitch, among other things. Now, some of the other things I was told were true. But when I was told I was entitled, I was like, what do you mean? Like qualify that. Like, well, you just think everything's going to work for you. And this person knew I did magic, and I was like, but I do magic. Like, of course everything's going to work for me. Like, yeah, but you don't have to fucking act like it. I was like,
yeah, I do.
And I'm over here like, you're just the villain in someone's story if you believe in yourself. I mean, really, it was one of those moments that actually put me on the path that I am now. This happened before a lot of it, but I remember being like, what the hell? Like, when did believing in yourself become a problem?
Right.
But it has, and that's because, just said at the risk of sounding a bit tinfoil hat, like, there are plenty of people that don't want you to succeed in the world.
Actually, a lot of people.
Yeah,
want to succeed.
And so
sad.
You got to ask yourself, like, well, fuck it, like, and it's not like a grand conspiracy of like, we are the council of We Hate Alex, and we are meeting on our bi-monthly meeting to see how we can fuck this guy up because he's getting too big for his britches. But it's literally like, you go to school and you're taught how to work for other people. Said at the risk of sounding like a stereotypical American libertarian. You go to the school, you're taught how to work for other people. You're not even taught how to think for yourself or critically think. You go to college, and the first 2 years of college, you're relearning everything you should have learned in high school. You go through all that stuff, and finally you have a degree, and you know some things in theory, maybe, but you're not taught how to want. And that's another thing too. We as magicians are bad at wanting. For people who cast circles and chant for hours and astral project and send our fetches, we are bad at wanting. It is not a crime to be like, for example, I have literally been across a Zoom call between students who are on the verge of tears, being like, I feel horrible, but I want the person I'm with to be beautiful. And you're like, of course you fucking do. Why would you not want them to be beautiful? They're like, because I'm not beautiful. And I'm not gonna be this like hippie who's gonna be like, oh, it's okay. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I want you to win. You can be fucking Danny DeVito. This other guy is, and he got what he wanted. Like, fucking again, if you want the hippy dippy, oh, we're all, no, that's not me. I'm the guy who's gonna tell you how to win, but I'm also gonna be the guy who's gonna be like, look, if you don't let yourself want, really yearn, it's that thing that gets you up in the morning, that like, because there are certain things that you can't deny that you like, the music that you like, the aesthetic that you like, the car that you want to drive, the thing that you spend time looking at on social media that you're like saving up to buy, that feeling. I remember as a kid, there was this guitar magazine that I looked at. I had it, and I kept looking at the picture of this guitar that I wanted to have for so long. Because again, I was a kid. I didn't have a fucking job, right? Like I was like 13, 14. Now, of course, I did magic and I got it. But looking at the picture, there was no question in my mind that I wanted it. That I wanted it for myself, for my own pure fucking reasons. And we as a society, we as magicians, are taught not to want. This is actually kind of an exclusively English language speaking world problem. You go to any occultist in fucking Brazil or Eastern Europe or Asia, the country known as, right? Like those, you go to anywhere else and they're like, nah, fuck it, I want that, I'm gonna get it. But you talk to an English speaking magician, it's like, oh, well, I need to have the thing that's right for me. And I'm like, no, motherfucker, I know what's right for me. I know it here. I know it in my balls what's right for me. Like I know exactly what I need and what I want, but we don't let ourselves do that. That's actually one of the hardest things that I've had to get my students to open their mind to. Is like, bro, you're here. You're learning magic. You're learning magic to make your life better, and you're afraid to want. You're afraid to want someone beautiful, but who doesn't?
It comes all back to worthiness. And
Sure.
it's incredible in our society how much we feel we are not worthy of the great grand things. So it is a process. And I love that you are recognizing that in your students and creating the ripple. Once again, that is so cool.
I fucking try. I mean, my goal is to take a student and make them someone who doesn't just want artfully. Like, I don't want you to just hunger. I want you to be a connoisseur of desire. I want you to be the kind of person who goes, I will have not only my dream life, but my dream life will be vast. It will be, multidimensional. Like a good example is I really focus a lot in my training on like the mind palace techniques and really building that etheric temple, but actually building it. Like I have people get like graph paper, like old D&D maps, and map that shit out. Like you don't need to know architecture to do it, but literally do it and then walk through it and do it. And I tell them, like, fill it with the thing. No, like ask these rooms to show you what you really want. And don't flinch from it. Like, don't be afraid of being shown what you really, really want. Because if you get a lesser version of that, there are spirits that keep track. Because these things have medieval mindsets, even to medieval people, right? Like they don't look at you and go, oh, well, they're being very, very kind and very, very woke about this. They'll look at you and be like, that isn't what you wanted. We gave you what you asked for, but you're not behaving like that's what you wanted. You're not hungry.
You're settling.
Right. And again, you're going to do all this magic and all this shit to settle? I'm not. That ain't me. Like, and it shouldn't be you. It shouldn't be any of you listening to this. It shouldn't be any fucking buddy who picks up magic and is serious.
Absolutely. Don't settle. Go big.
I agree. No, absolutely. Fucking do it. I mean, and again, even if I'm not the one to teach you, teach it to yourself. Like, if you learn one thing, like I said this in a lot of my one-off classes, like if there's one thing you take away from it is this. If there's one thing that anyone takes away from hearing me speak now, I hope it is that you are owed the right to dream, to yearn, to want. And if you have magic, and you really have it, if you know you're good at it, if you're good enough that you can rely on it, then the bridge between the two is something you just need to build. And you can. You just have to do it.
That's awesome. That's an awesome takeaway for today. That's fantastic. You're
Yeah,
speechless.
I'm just always wowed and awed whenever Alex and I get to talk, because he's
No,
he's one of those people I could sit here and listen to for hours and hours and hours, because he's somebody who knows that knowledge without mileage is bullshit. So let's put on the miles. And I love
no,
that.
it is awesome. There's nothing, it's like, oh, I just looked at the time and we're like way over your time.
Oh shit, I'm sorry
So
about that.
we apologize, but we are it is so great to listen to you. And so we're honored you said yes again. So
Oh, I'd
how
be happy to. But listen, you guys were you guys were the first podcast I was on. I will come back all the time. You guys helped me make my career what it is. So
awesome.
really thank you, the both of you.
It's such a great community when we can all build each other, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's what it should be about. I mean,
Yeah.
I could go on for a while about the duplicitous shit occultists do to each other, but that's a topic for another interview.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And really why? I mean, I think that our message is better, that we're all better together. And I don't know, just with my word of the year, ripple. I think we all create a ripple and we can make a freaking tidal wave when we work together. So raise the vibration.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I'm here for that.
Well, once again, this was absolutely delightful.
Oh, my pleasure. Truly.
You bet. And we will absolutely take you up on that and have you on again for season 3. And
yeah, I need to do that. I want to look at the data class.
like I said, when I put that on, I'm going to send it to you guys just because you seem interested and I want more people to nerd out with.
Fantastic. We love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and spreading your pearls of wisdom again, Alex. It's been a pleasure as always.
Well, I'm glad to be here.